This house is the perfect example of why it's so important in today's market to position your property correctly when you're listing it. I want to walk through this house here and show you exactly what we did to position this property and tell the story that goes along with this house. So come on in, let's take a look. All right, so we are in the center of the kitchen, which is a main focal point for the whole living space on the main floor. Now, the first step of the process, when we actually start to evaluate a house, we really need to understand what are the variables of the property. Now, these can be variables that are either going to be amazing features of the property, or they could be negative. And so what we want to do is just be so intentional about how we evaluate and we pick out the things that are going to be important to the big picture of selling your house. All right, so the variables we were talking about, this kitchen is packed full of amazing features that are going to go straight to the highlight category. For example, this particular kitchen, when it was remodeled just a few years ago, they really elevated the finish level by going with true hardwood huntwood cabinets, which in our marketplace, in this particular price point, this would be like 2 to 3 steps up above your typical finish level for just the cabinets alone. Now, in addition, one of the sellers actually used to be a private chef. And so this whole kitchen was designed very strategically for both entertaining as well as functionality. So you'll notice that there's actually 2 dishwashers, there's 2 sinks, there's a commercial hood for cooking, an oversized refrigerator, including a warming drawer as well. When we're talking about actually entertaining and using the space, it's going to be functioning on a much higher level than many of the other comparables and significant properties in this price point. Let's take a look at a couple of other areas in the house that have amazing features that also are going to play a factor into how we position the property. All right, so we made it to the primary shower and the bathroom area. Now you're going to notice right here on the wall, there's a thermostat for the heated tile floors in the bathroom. Now, we do see heated tile floors in this price point, which is, the 2 to 3 million price point. However, it's not typical that you would see heated flooring in the shower itself. And so we want to make sure we highlight that and include that into the narrative that we're going to talk about. So now not every variable is a good variable. So as you walk into the lower level, we have a urinal. There was definitely feelings about it from other buyers who came through the property. And so a lot of people actually wanted that removed, and the cost and the hassle of removing that definitely was part of the conversations that we had throughout this process, and we were expecting because it is a variable. All right, so this brings us to the second part of the process, which is creating a narrative that is associated with the property, the storytelling behind the property that we're selling. This is very clearly a house that has many different entertaining spaces. We have the pool, we have the chef's kitchen, we have this wet bar downstairs, we have a number of outdoor spaces that are perfect for entertaining and having guests. So that tells us that there is a potential story to tell about this property, the way it can be used, how it can be lived in, and the memories that can be made based on the amenities of the property. One thing that is crucially important when selling properties and providing service to sellers, we need to make sure that the narrative and the story behind the house actually gets conveyed to potential buyers. Now, this happens in a couple of different ways. First of all, when we're interacting with other brokers who have buyers who are bringing them into the house, we are telling the story, we are highlighting features, and we are helping other brokers relay that story to their clients. Second way we do this is actually through our open house process. Now, I am a huge believer that being here on the property is an important aspect to actually selling and providing the best terms and price for our sellers. And so when buyers come through, this is the story that we start weaving into place. Depending on really what the buyer is looking for, we're listening very carefully to understand what they're looking for in the property. And then we can take bits and pieces of that story to make sure that they understand that this house could be a potential fit for them. The third way that we're going to make sure that this story is conveyed is actually going to be through the marketing material. So we have a full marketing package, video, print, direct mail, as well as online advertising that we always provide to our sellers so that we can get the message out to people who maybe are not in the market, but they could be. And that's going to lead to the third step, which is going to be how we actually price your property and position it in the marketplace with other comparable properties. Now, what's important is that it's not always cut and paste. There's not one particular price that's right for your property. There's typically a range. And so that range can be large, that range can be small, depending on the first two steps of the process. So if we have a very large buyer demographic and we have a lot of standard features, then we're going to be able to dial in the price to a pretty small range. We should be able to find out exactly what other properties are selling for that have those similar features. On the flip side, if it's outside of that bell curve of amenities and features, then we're going to need to look at how large is that potential buyer pool? What kind of financing could they potentially be using? And are there things that are going to push the price in one direction or another? So this is going to make our range a little bit wider than you might typically see with a house that's like right in the middle of the bell curve. So what we're going to do is we're going to really evaluate how big is the buyer pool, how capable are they of buying, and then what other properties are we competing with? All right, so how do we actually come up with that price range? We always need to look at what other properties are available in that price point that you're going to be competing with in the marketplace. About 80% of the pricing is going to be based on comparable and significant properties in the area. The caveat to that is that usually in the higher price points you go, you're going to see more variables like we talked about in step number one. So the more variables you have, the more subjective the pricing is going to be. So as you increase the price point, you may have a larger range in which you can work in. Things like the pool, which we talked about, are going to provide a huge value to some buyers, less of a value to others. And so that could be a type of variable where we might want to price a little bit more aggressively in hopes that we can actually pull in a buyer who appreciates that particular amenity. So as we increase price point, the value of comparable properties is going to get a little bit more subjective than something that is a lower price point in the median price range. Hey, thanks so much for watching the content. I hope you're enjoying it so far and getting some knowledge about our real estate market and really how things work, especially in the luxury space and in the Seattle, Bellevue markets. Go ahead and like, subscribe, leave me a comment. We're posting every week, always looking to hear what you want to hear about, properties you want to see, high-end real estate. You let me know. Back to the video. All right, so what actually happened with this property? We were on the market for 36 days and ended up closing this property right here at $2,150,000 right here in North Beach. This property and this buyer actually came from one of my open houses, which, like I was saying earlier, is a crucial part of our listing process because there are many unrepresented buyers who come into homes all the time looking for your home. This property was dual represented, and so if you would like to know a little bit more about how that process is different than the typical buyer and seller agreement, go ahead and take a look at this video right here. It's gonna have everything you need to know about how to create a fair transaction for both parties. It's gonna be important whether you're a broker or a buyer and seller, especially with all of the new laws that are being put into place in Washington. So you're gonna wanna watch that video.